as the go-to guy to anything related to brain games. He's worked with the top scientists here in Sterling and across abroad. Let's give a big hand.
Hi everyone. At our lab, actually, I am called Jan the Younger, and the other Jan is Jan the Elder. And it can be because he's academically more advanced, but I sometimes also think that his cognition is potentially more advanced.
No, I simply have less hair.
But I will still do the presentation.
I just crashed my own brain. Just like the button.
So let's talk about brain training apps. What is happening in this field today, and maybe we'll learn something about the future as well. Scrolli aga jah? Oh, very good. So let's imagine that you go for a walk here and due to some unfortunate circumstances you trip and you break your tooth on these cobble roads. You would have to go and see a dentist. You go to the dentist, you sit in the chair and you ask the dentist, doctor, how will you help me? How will you treat me? And the dentist says, I'm inspired by dental science. Or, don't worry, I have worked with other dentists. So this might sound ridiculous for us, but this is actually what is happening in brain training, in the brain training app industry today. So if you just Google brain training app, you look at the apps, their descriptions, you look at their home pages, then these are the kinds of sentences or value propositions that you see. And as you can see, they are quite general, not very specific. There are some that are more specific, but even then, you can see that they are kind of beating around the bush. So they are saying that we have a product A, and it is generally known that products like this do this and that. So why is it that they cannot tell us anything specific about this product? It might be the science, because even though psychology, academic psychology, and even neuroscience has been around for years, this field is still relatively new. So it started with people taking paper and pencil tests and making computer versions of them. But that's actually not what the brain training app is about, because it doesn't really make use of the computer as such. It's just a new medium. So one reason why there is little evidence is that the science is still weak. It used to be that there was a lot of debate about whether these things work. Every month there is a publication that says brain training doesn't work, then the next month there is one that says brain training does work. And now we have actually reached the stage where scientists are reviewing evidence, writing a lot of review papers and analysis. So we're getting somewhere. Another, well, not reason, but aspect to consider is the market. So the market for brain training apps. There was no market in the 90s, except for some crazy scientists who made some kind of computer programs. Then in the 2000s, there were some first apps. One was, for instance, by Torkel Klingberg, he's from Karolinska, which was quite decent. The science, I think, had to do with working memory training. And now we actually have a market. this is just a brief overview of what this market looks like. So it's quite big already, and it's growing. And there are the consumers, then there are the healthcare providers. There is also something for the school systems, and also employers and the military. So one reason or aspect of why there is little evidence might be that the market is still evolving. It goes back now, right? If I press back.
Yeah, it's okay.
Oh, great. And of course, whenever you don't have a market, there are few regulations. When you have a market, there are regulations. So now there are regulations. Let's talk about these regulations briefly. Last year was an important year for the brain app industry because there were the first landmark legal cases in the world, I'd say. So they are relevant because it was a very unregulated field, and it kind of brought some kind of certainty for everyone. So there was this one company called Lumos Labs. The product was called Lumosity. I don't know if anyone has played it, but it was quite big in the consumer segment, especially. I think they had 1.8 million users, and they were doing pretty good. But then this Federal Trade Commission was not very happy with them, and you don't have to go through all of this, but basically they blamed them for not having any evidence to back up their claims, also for giving people unsubstantiated hopes for making their brain younger, and there were other problems like giving away free iPads for positive reviews. But anyways, if you look at the legal document, then there are some things about brain science, but there are some, majority of problems have to do with the general consumer protection. So this means that the market has reached a state which is actually positive, where this Federal Trade Commission believes that the consumer is threatened, and there need to be regulations. Here is another example from last year. This was a smaller company. Well, they had committed even more crimes from the FTC's point of view. But basically, what is also interesting is that this is not a health organization, or this is not the FDA or the National Institute for Mental Health. This is just a regular consumer protection agency. And if we look at what the commissioner who was behind these decisions said, then it reflects that they are actually saying that, okay, we have this new industry now, we don't really know much about it, and we have doubts about the evidence, but we are worried about the consumer. So we give you a fine, stop whatever you're doing and come back with more evidence. And this is a response from one of the companies. It was a smaller company, where they are saying that, hey, we are just doing brain apps. Please don't consider us like a pharmaceutical company, that it's not that sensitive, just leave us alone, don't worry about it. But what I actually would like to point out is that they are asking not to be held to the same standards that are applied in the drug industry. So actually, I'd ask, why not? Because I actually think that this is exactly what should happen. Because if you look at the consumer or person, like someone with major depression, for instance, then you have the patient. The patient can basically decide if to take a pill or to use an intervention, psychological intervention. So how come the pill, even if it doesn't work well and its probability of efficiency is around 50 to 55% usually for depression, why does a pill have to go through like 10 years of development and testing, which is time costly and time-wise costly and money-wise costly, whereas the brain training app or intervention can be something that was invented a year ago and has really little proof. So I think to answer the question, how do we gather evidence for apps? One would be to look at the pharmaceutical industry. Because all of the steps, you have an idea for an app, you do some basic research, then you start the trials probably not with animals as in the drug industry or at the lab, but with few people, maybe the healthy. And then there are phases. These phases might, lead you to a place where you stop the development. And then you get the regulatory approval, and then you go to the patient or the consumer. So in these two legal cases, what might have happened is that the companies just went direct to the consumer, and that's why the regulatory bodies weren't that happy for a reason. So let's look at these steps maybe a bit more closely. One is, if you have an idea, then how do you check early on if the idea has something or not? One solution is to make some small studies on people in the lab. This is actually one of the things why I went to do PhD studies, because I had a theory or how to do early checking if an idea for an app works or not. So basically you can use brain monitoring techniques and EEG and stimulation techniques to see that if you stimulate the brain in the relevant network, if the person's score or behavior on a task changes, then you're probably hitting the spot. And this might be some kind of proof for the FDC. The problem is that it's quite general, because almost any working memory task, for instance, they activate almost the same network. Then there is the problem of testing, because the testing needs to be done on scale. So how do you test people with, let's say, product ideas, app ideas, so that it's not very costly and very time consuming? One solution might be to use new technologies, maybe the virtual reality, but here is an example of where an EEG headset was used. So on 500 subjects in one night. So this is not the laboratory EEG headset with like 64 sensors, but it's a consumer level headset. But still it means that you can do large samples in small time. And I think one other thing that we will see is that instead of doing one product fits everyone kind of app in the future, there will be more specific apps, like with drugs, that for instance, if you had a drug, then you gave it to the whole population, maybe the efficiency was like 55%. But then you notice that subgroups with some genes or a response to some biomarker had a nicer efficiency rate. So you would say that, okay, this pill is just for those people. So you stratify the patients. So I think this will also happen in the brain training app area, where you have specific apps for specific groups of patients or people. Yes. So just to put it together, since we're Nordic here, I understand. I think the Nordic countries have a good position to take a kind of a role in making these standards for this brain app industry, because there is a lot of drug development, there is a high standard of ethics, there are institutions, and for young people I think this means that there are things you can do even if you're a psychologist, and maybe you can find a career in that area where the clinical trials are not just about drugs anymore, but also non-drug things like apps. Okay, thank you. Any questions?
Questions?
I was thinking one difference is that it's more likely that a pill could cause harm if it's not tested properly, but if you're developing an app and you're using like established methods of training, it's less likely that it will cause harm. So would that be an argument against having very rigorous testing?
Yes, if you look at the drug industry history, then the problem with drugs was that you can spray them really fast. Just send them to pharmacies, and in 1 week, tens of thousands of people can have the pill. And that's an opportunity, but it's also a great threat, and there were some cases where awful things happened in the 60s, I think. But it's the same with App Store, because if you have an awful app that doesn't work, and if people use your app instead of a better app, then you can also spread it really quickly and spread your bad app. So, in some sense, that I think the risks are the same. Maybe not that fatal, but they're comparable, I think.
So, like if they would have a pathological condition and they were using this app instead of some treatment that would work.
For instance, yes, yeah, because they are using your one intervention instead of another, and they substitute each other. Yes.
Can I see the table you showed with the pill again? Because
this one.
Yeah, this one. What do you think of taking, like, not in a pill, but if we took a treatment and you made clinical trials while providing for patient care? What do you think of that? Because actually we're doing that in Denmark right now, not with apps, but with internet interventions, where we are applying it for patient care with people with mild to medium depression and some anxiety disorders, and doing clinical trials at the same time while they take care of the patients. What do you think of doing that?
But I think that if the ethics committee has approved it, then you should do it, and it's happening a lot. If it's performed correctly and it's randomized and follows the standards, then I think it's completely suitable, and you can have interesting results from there. Yeah, because there are some companies who are doing randomized controlled trials with apps, and that's definitely one solution, because it's quite difficult to criticize a well-performed randomized controlled trial, right?
Two questions in front of him. You were first.
Yeah. So, is there actually evidence of harm caused by these apps yet anywhere? Because while I agree that it shouldn't be possible to sell products with health claims if they're not harm, we actually have many groups of treatments in saying that actually actively cause harm, and they still haven't been fought down. So, I'm wondering what the writer is talking about, homeopathy or acupuncture or traditional medicine and things like that. These are obvious scams.
This reminds me of one case. There is a technique, direct transcranial, no, not that one, but direct current, yes, stimulation. So which is a small device, and it sends a low level voltage through your brain, and it costs like $500 or less. And there are people who are using it at home right now. And I know that in the brain stimulation area, people are quite concerned because it seems to be non-invasive and harmless, but we don't really know if having 2 electrodes with voltage and current in it for the whole night, if there might be some complications or risks or not. I wouldn't recommend it, actually. Yeah.
Another question?
Yeah, just to clarify, that are there still no consensus about whether or not these apps actually work? You said in the beginning of your presentation that every other paper says that they work and every other says that they don't work. But are there like studies about whether they work on some specific cognitive functions, or are some cognitive functions more trainable than others, if there are even some transfer effects?
Yeah, there are apps for which there is evidence that they work, and work means that they work better than placebo or better than something else, like better than Tetris, for instance, or some other computer game. But this debate about transfer, actually it's quite relevant. There is near transfer, which means that within the cognitive domain, like working memory, let's say visual working memory transfers to verbal working memory, and then there is this far transfer that you train on one cognitive type of task, and then it has like an overwhelming effect on your cognitive skills, and then there is the real world, like far transfer as well. If I do better on the task, will I do better in the world or in daily living?
I was talking about that mainly.
Yeah. So I think there are a few apps that have randomized controlled trials and that have nice evidence. But in general, you cannot really ask it about, about all apps together. I think it should be about specific apps.
Yeah, I was asking because nowadays you can hear these black and white claims that brain training games don't work, which just stack them all together.
Usually these publications, they look at, let's say, 10 apps and their evidence, and then they conclude that there was only 1 or 2 apps that kind of worked, and then the overall impression is bad. So I suggest to look into the specific app, maybe for now.
Just a quick question. Do you know of any apps that will be developed mainly for virtual reality? Brain training apps in VR?
I know that there are many apps. There's a lot happening, but I cannot show you one right now. But it's a hot, let's say, area in this app industry. Madis maybe knows some specific apps. Yes.
I think I know one. My friend is in a project, or I don't really got your question, but virtual reality training apps.
For the brain apps in VR.
You have like a social phobia.
I was thinking more of these cognitive functions.
Okay.
Yes, actually, in that area there are a few for phobias.
Just one more, maybe a comment, but like for therapeutical treatment, it's kind of hard sometimes to make research on it because it's very important that you actually like dermatology, and that's a really important thing. You like your therapist and you like the pathology, whereas and that could be the same with apps too. That some apps are good for some people because they like it, and some apps are good for other people because they like the apps. But maybe they were good at treat depression, but so it's kind of personal things. So it could be hard to make studies on them. Is that something?
I think it has to do with engagement, probably. If the patient or user is engaged with that. And there are some apps that work fine, actually, are delivered only through the therapist. So as a patient or consumer, you cannot directly go and use that, but your therapist can be the middleman or woman. Which probably also has to do with engagement and selecting the right app for the person. Yeah.
We have time for more questions.
Maybe. Okay. Maybe you have mentioned, but I forgot. Did you give an example of what sort of app are there to train brain?
Sorry, which app?
If you have mentioned any application name
that works?
Yeah, that are being used for training, brain training.
Well, I didn't name specific apps, but for one that is, for instance, the Torkel Klimberg app was called CodeMed, and it's used for working memory training in attention deficit children, and it has a pretty good track record and is not below the line, I think. So look at that and look at the randomized controlled trials, for instance. If there is none in the publications list, then there's a big question mark.
More questions?
Maybe rather than go positive, but it still works at the moment. It isn't shut down still.
It works. I think they lost a lot of users, like a third. And then the judge told them that, okay, you just need to pay part of the fine now. If I catch you again, you will have to pay the rest. And then you have to redo your communications and come back. If you come back, then you better have more evidence. So I think they kind of readjusted what they say about their product and probably are working on the product.
I mean, I see a lot of money made there. So they should be interested in making those clinical trials if the program really works.
Mm-hmm.
So they should do the trials.
Maybe.
Yeah. In my opinion, it's simple as that. If you're believing your product, then you make the trials.
Yeah.
Shouldn't they also be tested independently? Like you have an implicit conflict of interest. If you are developing the app, you're going to sell it, but you're also running the testing.
Yeah, that's a good point. Very often, at least the people admit their conflict of interest now in the comments. But yeah, it's, I don't know if it changes that. Yeah, but it's a good point. Or in some cases, you have the founder of that being first author in all publications, which are evidence for that. So that's again a bit shady.
Is there a list somewhere where we can find those which are good or more or less good?
Actually, there are some communities. One is this sharpbrains.com that I've also worked with. and they keep an eye on this industry. So maybe that's a nice resource. I have no personal interest in that. Sharkbrains.com.
Shark, not shark.
Shark, no shark.
Try another joke.
Do you have more questions?